Dayna Martin is an author and peaceful parenting advocate, spreading the message of freedom and children's rights. Author of the books Radical Unschooling, A Revolution Has Begun, and Sexy Birth. She's been featured on The Dr. Phil Show, Nightline, 60 Minutes, The Jeff Probst Show, and most recently, ABC's hit show, Wife Swap. Her articles, videos, and TV appearances have helped thousands of families on their path to live with more freedom, peace, and joy. We hear words like rebellion and chalk it up to normalcy. But what if there was nothing to rebel against? What if we lived with the same respect for our children that we demand they have for us? What if we could recognize that punishments model injustice, and that through using power to control another person, we are teaching them to do the same? It is through loving, kindness, and understanding that children learn love and peace, and in turn will reflect this back on the world. Respecting children's rights and freedoms is a revolutionary approach to parenting and education. This is a parenting philosophy on the leading edge of new thought, yet it is rooted in instinctual wisdom. Our culture needs to realize that living with respect and freedom with our children is the most responsible way to create a peaceful world.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Try This at Home with Dayna Martin. I'm your host, Dayna, and I am coming to you live from Madison, New Hampshire. How was your week, everyone? We had a busy week ourselves as a family. Devin, our 15-year-old son, well, he just turned 15, actually, the other day. It was his birthday. And he had a couple friends over. Xavier was here. You heard her on a couple shows ago. They had a great time together, did a couple photo shoots with Xavier's passion for photography. Devin's building a survival shelter right now, and I posted a couple photos of it on Facebook. If you haven't subscribed to my page yet, please do. You'll be really inspired by seeing what my kids are up to and what our family's adventures are every week. I love to connect with people that are interested in learning about this life, so join me there. I have two different pages, an author page and a regular personal page, so subscribe to both. Last night we were driving home from the store, Devin and I and Ivy, and we saw somebody pulled over on the side of the road. And he looked like he was in trouble. It was pretty late at night, so we pulled over to see if we could help. And as we got closer to him, Devin and I got out of the vehicle and saw that there was a deer. He had hit a deer. And Ivy was in the car. She didn't want to see it. And I walked over and asked if he needed help. Well, as we got closer, we realized it was somebody that we knew. He was a local man and friend of the family. So Devin helped him load the deer up in the car, in his truck. And I asked if he could go up and watch him skin the deer or clean the deer, I guess it's called, when you get all the insides out of it. So this is something Devin's wanted to do for a long time. He's pursuing being a homesteader, and he really wants to hunt, and which has been definitely challenging for some members of our family, where I'm vegan and Tiffany's vegan, and there's a lot of discussion within our family about it. But I still, despite my own choices and my own agenda in life, I need to respect my children. So it's part of the life that we live in freedom. So the man said, sure, Devin can come on up and I'll show him how to do it. And I think that takes great courage, both to pull over to ask somebody if they need help, being a woman, because we're so feared into not doing that. But when you feel that inner drive to help somebody, just go with it. And your instinct won't lead you wrong. If you're feeling danger, you'll be notified. Your instinct will tell you. And also facilitating Devin's interests and passions. Well, all of my children's really, but it's hard, I think, initially to ask people if your child can watch what they're doing to learn from it. But after a while, you begin to value your children's education and facilitating their learning more than what people think of you. So if you're embarrassed to approach somebody, really just put it into that kind of perspective. So I just asked this gentleman named Steve, I said, Steve, can Devin come up and watch you do it? And he was so excited about it, actually. Steve was thrilled to be able to mentor a young man through the process. And Devin went up and he learned exactly how to do it, and Steve even let him use the knife that Devin forged, so Devin was all excited, and I guess it was pretty gross and pretty messy, but Devin learned a lot, and he's actually up there again today to learn how to skin the deer. So he's there right now during the show. He was going to be on the show tonight, but he's up there doing that. So I'll keep you posted. Check my Facebook page for really gross photos. Tonight I am wanting to share with you parenting in the news. I try to cover this every week. I do a little search, and if something's jumps out at me. I like to share it with everyone. This week, the title, and it's an NPR article, is "Cell Phones May Distract Parenting to the Child's Detriment," this study says. Well, I think that's obvious for most of us. I'm sure that you've been to a fast food restaurant or the store and right, even at the park, and seen children with their parents, and the parents are on the cell phones the whole time. And it's so sad to watch when a child is trying to get their parents' attention while their parent is on that. But let's see, the study says that there was a report done by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the researchers, led by pediatrician Dr. Jenny Ratsky, watched 55 caregivers, mostly parents, who were dining with one or more children who were under 10 years old. And perhaps predictably, they saw 44 of the parents out of 55 pick up smartphones and scroll, call, check email, surf the net, or whatever. 16 of them used the device nearly the entire time. And what interested them was not that the caregivers did online so much as the child's response to it. The response by the children ranged from entertaining themselves to escalating bids for attention. They noted that highly absorbed caregivers often responded harshly to child's misbehavior. And I'm sure that anyone listening can relate to that on some degree. They noted that the lack of engagement with the child was a big mistake, since children learn face-to-face. They learn language and how to regulate their emotions just by having a present parent. So, let's see. It goes on to say, Time magazine also did a report, and they write about something really similar, saying this writer wrote, "All around me, I see parents with their babies and toddlers and young children, but not with them. The grown-ups are on the phone. The dad pushing his son on the swing set while hands-free on his mobile isn't really with the child. The mom pushing her baby in a stroller while she's yakking on the phone isn't with her child either. The kids aren't happy about it, and they're pulling on their parents' clothes. They're yanking on their arms, and they're acting out to get attention." I don't like that term, acting out. Actually, I think that they're just expressing themselves. Acting out has such a negative energy, as if it shouldn't be happening. So I'll let it go, though, for this article's sake. I've heard them begging their parents to stop and to disconnect, and I've watched the children start to whimper the minute the mobile phone is picked up off the dinner table. So this completely goes into alignment with my whole philosophical perspective on working with parents, that you can't just go through the motions of being present. You have to emotionally and mentally be present with your children. When you're playing something with your children, a board game or something that they enjoy doing, and you're not there, you're not present, your kids know it. They let you know. I mean, I've had my children, if I've been on the computer doing some work and they've been trying to talk to me, they say, "Look at me when I'm talking to you, please, Mom." Like, they need to see my connection. So I think that this article is probably pretty obvious. We've all seen it, but it really just kind of reiterates the importance of being present and being connected and breathe and being in the moment with your children. That's how they grow. That's how they learn, and connection is so important. It's more than just physical presence. Be emotionally present there as well. The article goes on to say that there is benefits to technology and devices, and they've experienced that parents using the smartphones in public with their children, watching funny YouTube videos or playing games, could be a tool for connection instead of something that separates you. So I love that they ended with that, because I do agree with that. I'm not somebody who's anti-technology. I support it completely for learning. So this week I have a very special guest here with me. I have my husband, Joe. Joe and I have been together for a very long time. We met when I was 15 and he was 17. And yeah, so welcome to the show, Joe.
Hey, how everybody?
The kids are alone downstairs. So if you hear any random noises, screaming, or anything, Joe's going to have to leave to attend to them, but I think they got themselves pretty occupied. And Devin's skinning the deer, so we'll see how it goes. Joe and I met in, what year was it? I'm going to give you a quiz on air live. What year did we meet?
88, wasn't it?
Wow, that's amazing. Do you remember when we met? Like the first time that you saw me? See, Joe doesn't know what questions I'm going to ask him. I told him I wanted to surprise him on air to get these authentic reactions. So we did not plan these questions. I am dropping them on him live at this moment. So
yeah, I remember walking down the hall and I saw this new, I had gone to the same high school, I'd grown up around here and been with the same people for most of, my school years. So I thought, I don't know, a couple days into the new school year, and there was the new hot chick walking down the hall that I saw, and I was like, whoa, who's that? And that's the first time I'd seen you.
Joe and I always have this little thing about the word chick. I was so want to hear from my listeners. Like, do you think that's a disrespectful word? I have mixed feelings about it. I know Joe means like the best of intentions, and I say dude. So it was like dude and chick, kind of like the male and female version of slang. Some people get offended by the word chick, but anyway. So, you love when your husband describes you on air as the hot chick. Not the smart one, not the intellectual one that just blew your mind with my knowledge. No, it was because I was hot.
To me yet.
No, what I remember about Joe and I meeting for the first time is I saw this guy like standing outside of all my classes when I came out. I was in 10th grade and I was like, okay, this is weird. Like he was always there. And then I'd walk through this lobby and he took a picture of me you were in photo club or something, but I didn't know it. All I saw was flashes and I thought you were like a stalker.
It worked.
Oh God. So the message we're giving tonight is don't be afraid to stalk one you're attracted to. No, seriously. So Joe and I have been together for a really long time. We got married in 1995. It's our 19th wedding anniversary in June. I can't believe we're headed to the big 2-0. It's amazing. We've been through so much in the last 20 years. And can you believe Devin's 15?
I know.
It's amazing. Do you remember when I first told you I was pregnant for the first time? Now, keep in mind, we never said we didn't want kids, but our friends started having kids and we would always kind of have this little dig. You know, we'd be out with people with kids and the kids would start screaming or something would happen or they couldn't come out with us. And we'd say like reason number 33 not to have kids yet. Like we totally were like.
I think that was my shtick.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I just followed
reason number
suit.
400 not to have a kid.
Well, who would have thought that we'd be at this point in life with 4 kids? Our life revolves around parenting and that we'd be advocates for this life. And we traveled the world promoting this philosophy. Do you remember when I told you I was pregnant for the first time?
Not specifically. I remember you saying it, but I don't remember exactly what you said or how we reacted.
I told you that you have to scoop the litter box from now on.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. Now I remember.
And, you know, it's interesting, studying birth and everything. I knew I wanted to have a natural birth with Devin, and I did. And we went down this path. And one thing about Joe is he's Italian. He's kind of a loud dude. Some people can take him as kind of gruff, but deep down, he's the most sensitive, loving human being that I've ever met, the most compassionate and understanding. And you were always so supportive of my decisions, like my research about breastfeeding and co-sleeping. You were never somebody who protested that. You trusted me. Now, when it came to parenting, when Devin got a little older, I think we were kind of exploring how we were going to be as parents. And I remember, people around us were like starting to spank their kids and punishing really punitively. And I remember telling you that I didn't want to parent that way. I mean, do you remember how you felt when I first started talking about like not punishing and not spanking and not yelling and all those kind of things?
Well, I just remember that, I was wondering how we were going to survive that. Like how will we make it through? How will we teach them anything if we didn't tell them no, or we, teach them that they couldn't do something a certain way.
How to control them.
With discipline. Yeah, I guess, But I didn't know that was what it was about at the time.
You didn't know that we could say no, but it was just like one of those things focusing on the needs under the kid's behavior and not just obedience. I think that you went through a process I wrote about in my book where you, when I came to you saying, I don't want to punish Devin and I don't want to focus on obedience. And you said, I totally get it philosophically. I understand why, but part of me feels a little gypped.
Right.
Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, kind of, you go through your life saying you'll never be like that as a parent, but as you get closer to being a parent, you kind of, some of those things come out where you're, thinking about bedtimes or thinking about what you're going to allow your children to do or not to do or what things happen to you as a child where, you only have those tools to reflect on and you can go back and think about the times that you had to clean your plate before you could get up and go into the living room. And, I don't really specifically recall thinking, oh, great, now I get to control somebody, but I knew that it felt like I was having some part of my, parental, understanding was being changed or taken away from me. changing of the guard from single married person to all of a sudden being responsible for a child and wondering how you were going to get them to do what you wanted them to do if you didn't show some sort of control.
I mean, fast forward now to 15 years later. I mean, so you had common fears like any other father that's learning about this life. I work with a lot of couples the dads just don't know what to do instead of punitive discipline. They don't know what to do instead of punishments. And so I think when you first kind of learned about it, you didn't really know what I meant. You didn't really understand. But the tools that we've gained by just listening and being empathetic and helping the kids. I mean, what do you think the hardest thing? Like, do you find it frustrating parenting this way sometimes, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's really, I mean, I guess you could say yes. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't frustrated at times, but I just think that's part of life. I mean, frustrating is something that just happens no matter what in a job and in life. But I think that, I think the hardest thing is to turn off those knee-jerk reactions to things that you think you're supposed to react to, when in fact you don't have to react to nearly the things you think you have to. Like, with a child screaming at another child, sometimes it's just a quick no, but by the time they get halfway through that word, I used to get, I'd already be jumping up out of the chair, like, what's going on? How can I help? Or how can you stop? Or how can I make this noise go away?
But you're really highly sensitive too. That's another
Right.
factor, is like Joe's really highly sensitive to noise, and it just triggers him, and it's really hard for him to hear screaming. And Tiffany's the same way. She totally takes after you in that way, where I don't even, it doesn't affect me at all. But you're just like, can't you hear what's happening? Like,
Right.
I just need to make it stop. And so I'm focusing on your needs and the kids' needs at the same time. And sometimes it's a hard balance for sure. But, so I know exactly what you're saying. You're saying that your knee-jerk reaction is just to be punitive and just be like, stop, guys, stop. But you don't want to be that way. You don't want to be like we were necessarily raised. You want to be able to find out how you can help. And
Right. I think the knee-jerk reaction is to just make it stop and not find out what caused it or a better way to make it stop than just stop. Stopping somebody from, obviously pulling a dog off somebody that's getting bit is a way to stop something, but it's not, why is the dog biting somebody? Why is this child screaming? And what brought them to this point of screaming, when most of the time it's just a silly little thing that's just an annoyance to a child, but they don't know any other way to deal with it except for to scream no or to scream stop, or it's never even really a scream to one of us. It's never really got to the point of mom, help, or anything like that. It's just the only way I can tell you to stop is to scream no. And, sometimes it's just, it feels like it's overwhelming on the surface, but in fact
well, you make it a much bigger deal, I think, when parents kind of get involved. I'm not saying
Right.
that if it's bothering you and the kids are kind of having a really heated discussion, which happens a lot, especially with Ivy and Orion lately, when they're playing Minecraft, they tend to, it's interesting if any parents are listening who have kids that play games online virtually, they can be in the same room, but they're playing a game online. They can literally fight within the game. Let go of my block. And it's just new and it's different. This level of fighting with technology is kind of a new thing to process. And so we're kind of learning how to navigate all that as parents, and we need another computer. We so need another computer or two. The kids are growing and we've hit the point of technology where we need another computer. So,
I think it's worse on the Minecraft app. They meet up and, constantly just stop touching me. Don't bump me over. You took my thing. You stole my brick, whatever. It's like, why do you even play together sometimes? But,
I think it's funny. Joe and I have this kind of dance where those of you that are listening, I mean, you must know me enough to know that I'm positive and optimistic and joyful most of the time. Well, it can be kind of controlling of me to always be pointing out the positive in these situations where Joe just really needs to feel upset and frustrated about the kids fighting. So say the kids are fighting and he's like, I swear that's all they do is fight. And then I want to step up and say, well, they get along sometimes. They get along half the time. I kind of want him to hear that, but then he just takes it the wrong way sometimes and thinks I'm like trying to control him into seeing positive things when he's feeling negative. So I've learned, if any other mothers are listening, yeah, it's good to be focused on the positive, but sometimes you just really need to validate our partner and be like, I hear you. Yes, it does seem that way. Like they're doing nothing but fighting. So, yeah, even peaceful people can be annoying like myself sometimes. I want to remind everybody that's listening that please feel free to call in the show tonight. Ask us any questions, whether it's for me or Joe or both of us as a couple. We want to be here for you as a resource. The call-in number tonight is 1-718-717-8296. 1-718-717-8296. Give us a call. We'll pop you on the air here live and be happy to answer your question. I think early on in our parenting relationship, the family bed or co-sleeping was something that came really naturally to us. We always slept with our babies. We never used the crib that we got. It was kind of like a giant thing, like holder for laundry or a really big cat bed.
Or the cat,
yeah. Yeah, it was like the world's biggest cat bed. And I loved that you were always supportive of that. You know, when things would get kind of crowded in the bed, instead of blaming co-sleeping, we would make amends to fix it and make the bed bigger. Like our family bed has grown and evolved so much over the years. And one of the biggest questions that we get is about, well, how do you have time alone? How do you have time to be intimate? And I know I get that question all the time, but do you get that question from people?
Yeah, I mean, some of the conferences we get, you know, in the dad circles or whatever, we have, a lot of the dads will say that, you know, I work all day and then I come home and then, you know, a couple hours with the kids and then people go to bed and then they're in bed with us and they don't have any alone time with the wife. And, you know, my answer to that is that most of the people in the room have more than one child. So there was some alone time found at some point. And I always try to remind them that, you know, we won't always be like this and that every day, every year that the child gets older, there's more freedom. Of course, if you have two small children at home, there is a lot of hands-on time, but you know, you can find a way at night to sneak away to at least, you know, alone time doesn't have to be, you know, physical alone time as much as it can maybe just be together talking or, you know, watch a movie or, you know, whatever it is that you do want. There is a way to find that medium where you can sneak away when the children are sleeping and give each other a massage or more.
We used to have a bed and a spare room that we would like kind of sneak out of the bedroom and go into. That was kind of our plan, and that worked really well, or downstairs in the living room. But things have changed at this point, and we slept in separate beds actually for a lot of years. I wrote about that in an article that I posted on my blog called the Sacred Flow of the Family Bed. So do a search for that. You could read the whole story of our family bed life. But I slept in one room with Ivy and Orion because they were both nursing actually for a lot of years, and we kind of went to bed earlier than everybody else. And Joe slept in a bedroom with Devin and Tiff. Now Devin and Tiff are in their own rooms and their own beds. They have been since they were around 10 or 11. And Ivy and Orion are in the bedroom with us. So we have two queens pushed together, Joe and I in one bed it's actually one huge bed, but it just is two queens pushed together. So everybody's comfortable. We have plenty of room. And if you're a guy or a woman, I think it's mostly men. So I said if you're a guy, like your sex life isn't.
You mean dude?
If you're a dude, if you're a homeboy and your sex life isn't the way you want it at this point with young kids, please know it's temporary. I mean, there was a time where it was like once every week, once every 2 weeks for us. And now we're on the every other day plan. We're back up to where we want to be, so it's awesome.
It's nature's way of keeping less kids out of your life anyway.
Well, I think when you're breastfeeding too, it's so different. You're so physically connected, and the kids need you, and you nurse to sleep, and then you fall asleep, and there's so many issues, but it's only temporary. So don't get discouraged and think that that's the way it's going to be for you forever. Everybody's sex life is different, but as the kids get older, more time really does happen, and things do get better along those lines. So keep the faith, keep going. But yeah, it's interesting. The kids do just move out of the family bed when they're ready. I can remember you've always been so supportive of that. I love that about you, is you were always just wanting the kids there. It didn't make sense for you. You used to say.
It's so much easier to just have the kids in bed with you. You don't have to get up and go in the other room if they ever had a nightmare. I mean, our kids sleep through the night. We've never had a sleeping issue ever. I can't remember.
Never, not once.
You know, obviously when they're
years.
6 months old, they're going to wake up every hour.
Well, that's not a sleeping issue.
No,
that's not an
understand.
issue. That's nursing. That's
right.
normal.
But,
I mean,
our kids have always asked when they're ready to go to bed. And even to now, if we're up late watching a movie, Ivy will, she's almost 10 years old. She'll be, asking, well, are you tired yet, Mom? When are we going to go to bed? And she's the one ready to go to bed. And it works out so well. And all the needs are met. You can cover them up when you go to bed, or if you wake up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, you can make sure everybody's covered. You don't have to get up and go in another room and turn a light on. And you can just kind of look over and, everybody's still sleeping.
It just feels natural and it feels safe.
Right.
I can't tell you how many snowstorms or, thunderstorms we've slept through. The kids don't have nightmares when they're next to us. Maybe like once a year. Maybe you hear them.
And if you hear the bump in the night, it's not them. It's the cat jumping off the furniture in the living room or whatever. And you don't have to even worry about anything else. There's no, there's just no worrying when you know that your babies are, it's different when your 15-year-old son's in the other room. You're not really worried about him anymore.
Well, isn't it such a natural thing? It's like when they're ready, you're ready. Like as far as worrying goes, like when they're naturally ready to wean from the family bed and leave and go into their own room, and it feels perfect and right. There's no issues. It's easy.
I mean, the only complaint I have about the family bed, the way it is that it's hot in there because there's 4 of us in the room. So even like, this
you're
time,
always hot though.
Well,
oh my God.
know,
I'm like under like 30 clothes and you're like sweating.
At this time of year, come into the bedroom after an hour or two of you guys been sleeping or whatever, and I can feel the heat difference because the room's all closed up. So I usually open the window and then it cools off a little bit, but it's definitely, so if you're a cold person, throw all the people in one bedroom, you'll be warmer because it's definitely, a heat source.
We put the AC on a lot of the year too, just for that reason, to keep it kind of cool. And everybody has their own blankets. I think it's a big difference. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't share sheets and blankets. Joe and I, we each have our own because we have different needs, and the kids each have their own too, and it just makes more sense. And we always have had a fan going, and which is really helpful to drown the noise, because in a family bed there can be little noises and squeaks here and there, and you can wake each other up. So we have the fan. And for the first several years, when I was waking up very frequently to nurse, I would never have a clock in the room ever, because that's like one of the biggest tips I think for night nursing. And I nursed my kids at night right up until they were, 4 years old. So, it can go on for years, but without a clock, you're not like playing that game in your head where you're counting the hours. Oh, I just woke up at 2 and it's 4. It's only 2 hours sleep in between. You tend to kind of merge with a natural instinctual process, and you don't stress over it when there's no clock in the room. So turn the clock around. Yeah. Several of the biggest issues with parenting and partnership, peaceful parenting or unschooling, is the 3 hottest topics are sleep, which I think we talked a lot about. Bedtimes. We don't have bedtimes. Our kids go to bed when they're tired, and there's never been an issue with sleep.
Well, I think just to revisit that for a second, I think we're lucky because we work from home. I could understand, and I've heard from many guys and many dudes out there that, say that they have to go to bed at a certain time because they do have to get up and leave for work. They have a 45-minute commute, and they have to be at work at 9 or 8 or whatever the time may be, and they have to leave early. And so they do need the sleep where, here we can stay up as late as we want. We sleep as late as we want. Orion and myself are both on this late schedule, and Orion's been going to bed after 4 a.m. every morning. Every night for the past 3 months or whatever. He's been up till 4 or 5 a.m. and just, you ready for bed yet? Not quite ready. One more game or one more video or one more whatever I'm doing. Which is fine, because I just dub on the computer, edit some photos or whatever it is. And so it works out well for us. And I do understand that that's not always the case, but I think that goes back to that box fan. If you guys can get used to sleeping with a box fan, it'll drown out quite a bit of that noise once you're asleep and the fan's going. You won't hear the ruckus that's going on in the house. Obviously, if there's a Nerf gun war going on at 2 a.m., you may hear that, but hopefully that's not the case.
I think it works out like really good naturally too, to have everybody going to bed at different times, because we're home together all day, every day, like 24 hours a day, like all 6 of us. So it's nice that Joe and Orion are sleeping really late in the morning, because I have time alone with the girls, or just with Devin, or I have time alone in the morning when I wake up, because I go to bed with Ivy around like 11 or midnight, probably around midnight or 1 actually. We're like the earliest to bed, believe it or not. I think this time of year things are starting to shift where they're going to get earlier and earlier, but in the winter we're on a really late schedule. And I love that you and Orion have your special time at night, like just the 2 of you. So it really allows everybody to have one-on-one time with parents separately and together as a family. And I love hearing you laugh at 4 in the morning when you come to bed. It's so great. And you'll always remember those special memories. But we do realize that we are fortunate because Joe works at home, I work at home. That's something else that we talk about often at conferences, and I offer coaching on, is what we call unjobbing. That means not working for somebody else, really pursuing your passions and interests and making a living off of it and being entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is a passion of Joe's and mine. And, oh my gosh, I swear most of our conversations are ideas, different ideas, different concepts. We love brainstorming together. It's like really, really fun for us. We spend so much time doing that. And I think it's one of those things where we do implement a lot of what we think about and come up with as a couple. But a lot of the things don't happen. So it's okay to just brainstorm and throw out a bunch of ideas and see what you're both in alignment with. So sleep was a big issue for a lot of people at conferences, and we talk about it in coaching. But food is another big one. Food controls. Do you remember when Devin was little and he started eating solids? Like, we used to be so nervous about him getting enough that we would feed him and say funny things. We were so worried about him not eating enough. And I think that's so normal. I have friends that are unschooling parents where food was an issue. And then over time we realized that when he was hungry, he would eat, and we let go of control surrounding that little by little. And I wouldn't say we were controlling. We were just more...
We were just ignorant. We used to walk over and put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in front of his mouth and say, take a bite. And then we'd walk away and come back 4 minutes later, have another bite,
Right.
Almost not really controlling, but controlling his.
Well, we didn't know he would just eat when he was hungry, really.
Right.
Because
he'd be doing whatever he was doing. And it's not,
right.
He wasn't sitting at the kitchen table eating his breakfast or his lunch or whatever time of the day it was. And you knew he had to be hungry, and he'd just be doing whatever. You just walk by him and say, here, have a bite. And then you knew he at least had 5 bites of something. And I can remember doing the creature thing. We used to, Dayna and I would sit together at dinner, and, Devin would be doing his thing, and be like, you're going to eat? And he'd be like, no. And we're like, all right, whatever. So, it'd be like, because he hasn't eaten in hours, and we know he might start getting crabby. So I used to put a little bit of food on a spoon or a fork or whatever. He's 4 or 5 years old, and he was eating food. It wasn't like he was mashing a soft Cheerios. And I'd take some of the food and put it on a fork and stick it kind of under the table and say stupid, like your parents used to do to you. And, oh, there's a creature under this table. I wonder if it will eat this food. And it did work, and it made me feel better. But at the same time,
it made you feel better, but it was manipulating.
And I always felt kind of schmucky about doing it.
You don't know. You just are so worried that they're not going to get enough food. Because when you go to these well child visits, oh, he's on this percentile and that percentile, and he's underweight for this age, and you need to feed him, or he has to get these 12 food groups in one day. And it's so overwhelming when you go to experts or people that claim to be experts.
Believe me, at 15, he never stops eating, so you don't have to worry about that. He's no child that was ever offered food starved to death.
But we do worry as parents, new parents, about these things. So, we haven't gone to well child visits for a while. We go to the doctor if we need it, and we utilize it as a service if our children need it. This summer, our incidents with rabies shots. We were glad that there was a hospital and doctors. But as far as
Did you talk about that before?
I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on the show.
That'll be for next week.
No, I'm happy to share it now. We got plenty of time you were the one that let it happen. Let the kids play with the baby skunk, hon. Yeah, that's safe.
One day I came home from the store with, I don't know who was with me, a couple of the kids who came home from somewhere. I don't know where we were. We were out. We drove up the driveway, and I think Ivy saw a little thing in the field right next to our house. She said, oh my gosh, there's something right there. She thought it was a kitten or a cat, or we didn't know what it was. So she ran over, and it was this baby skunk. And it must have been the size of a soda can. Maybe a little bit bigger.
Cute.
And it was very cute and very soft looking. And it was not scared of us at all. It just stood there.
That should have been the first indication of rabies.
Now that we did the research, we knew that if the skunk doesn't run away, that was one of those things though, the old adage of your grandmother telling you never to play with wild animals. It's true because, what happened was, we ended up walking out to the garden to pick the green beans, whatever it was, and we threw some lettuce, some romaine lettuce or something down to the skunk, and the skunk was eating it. Actually, I think it was a banana. And the skunk started eating a banana, and then Ivy said, can I pet it? And I was like, I guess so, whatever. So she just reached out and touched it and gave us back a little pet. And, we didn't really think anything of it. Well, when we went to the garden to pick the green beans, we came back and the kids were gone. And I looked around and they had moved to the other side of the yard, a couple 100 feet away. And we were like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we brought the skunk down over here to Devin's Fort. So then we walked down and at that time I had grabbed a bucket and I brought the bucket down and I said, well, why don't we get the skunk out of here because we don't want him, we don't know where he came from. And why don't we go put him in the other field across the street that's basically in a wooded area that he'll just be able to go back into the woods and it'll be over. And right as I said that, the skunk bit Ivy. And it was just the tiniest little scratch.
They all had pet it. Like they were
right. 3 of the kids had pet the skunk. So.
It was more than a tiny scratch. I was kind of freaked out. It was a bite. I mean, like, and she came into the house and I called the hospital and they said, you need to bring her in now. For rabies shots and any of the kids that touched the skunk.
Well, you didn't know that. You had left.
Oh yeah, did I? Okay.
You left, and then when you got to the hospital, they said, "Tell me the story." You told them the story, and they said, "Did anybody else touch it?" And you said, "Yeah."
So you brought the other kids down.
She said, "Everybody needs to get rabies that touch the skunk."
Except for Devin, which Devin loved that he didn't have to. He was
right out of all the kids, and none of us, the 3 youngest kids, had pet the skunk.
So the series of rabies shots began, and I love that. Our kids weren't forced. So this is like a big kind of point of this discussion is our kids were not forced to get rabies shots because we have this relationship of connection and respect and partnership. We've kind of built this trust. You know, it's hard to believe unless you've really seen it or you've experienced it for yourself, but they believe what we say because we're not the wall between them and their desires. We're not trying to control them. They know that their needs matter to us as much as our own. So we gave them information and not in a fear-based way, like, oh my God, you could die without it, but a really honest way that this is what happened. And you get bit by a skunk and you need to have the series of shots because this is rabies and it's a deadly disease and you just really need to cover yourself. And they all made the conscious choice that, yeah, this is what we have to do. They didn't have fun with it. I mean, I think they all cried when they got the shot. But they didn't cry because they were being forced or held down. They knew what needed to be done.
And it's not the nightmare story. You saw 15 long needles in your belly button. That's untrue. You know, they just give you a regular shot in your arm or your leg or whatever.
2 or 3 of them at first.
Whatever it was.
It was quite a few the first visit.
I think it's 7
4.
total needles.
Well, they did one in your butt, like one of them, which was kind of embarrassing for Tiff, but like they were so respectful.
But they didn't have to. They wanted to do that. And by the end of it, we found out they didn't have to. That was
in the butt?
Yeah, that was like one of the more like
less painful way.
Because that shot was an actual like gelatin. You know, it was a very thick. You know, some of the liquids they use are like water, and some of them are gelatized or a thicker density. So that one really hurts your muscles. And
so that's the least painful way. Yeah, and it's not even really your butt; it's kind of above your butt. But anyway, so the experience was crazy. So we did utilize doctors. I had home births with all 3 of the kids. My first son, Devin, was born at a hospital with a midwife. I've shared this story before. Is Devin home? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm just going to see if
have him come up and share how the experience was. So Devin's he's just home from skinning the deer. We're in his room. This is our radio station in his bedroom. So he's, okay. I'm sure it's pretty gross. I hope he jumps in the shower. He skinned the deer. So I don't know what he's going to do with the hide. He's home?
Yeah, he's home. The guys just dropped him off.
Cool. Awesome. I can't wait to hear about it. So what did you think, honey, the first time, like, when you saw Devin be born and you saw it happen? I mean, as a man watching a woman give birth to a almost 10-pound baby naturally, what were your thoughts surrounding birth?
I don't know. It's changed a lot because I can't remember it was hospital. Everything was so new and different and freaking out, driving 50, 60 miles an hour through the center of town in a 30-mile-an-hour zone at 4 a.m. The hazard zone, the police right behind us, but they didn't pull us over.
Right.
That was interesting. Getting you out of here. That was probably the most intense part of the whole thing was that 20 minutes it took to get you in the car and out of here. And then
little did we know how long it does take.
I mean, our hospital's 13 miles from here. And I think it was 2 a.m. when we left. I just put the hazards on and drove 60 miles an hour the whole way. And probably just over halfway there, we drove by a police officer and he pulled out and followed me right up the strip of our main strip, road all the way to the hospital. And when I pulled into the hospital, he just kept on going. He never pulled in behind me. I think he just knew that, I obviously wasn't doing 300 miles an hour down the road. He knew I was in a hurry to get somewhere and I wasn't throwing empty beer cans out the window. So he knew that, he trusted that I was on the way somewhere and he was right. But I can remember, just being nervous that the baby would start coming before we got there. That was my biggest fear, I think, but I don't know.
I think most people are fearful of that. And then later when I told you about home birth, do you remember how you felt? Were you scared? I mean, 'cause I think a lot of women listening have young children and a lot of them aren't done having babies, and home birth is an option that a lot of people would love, but their partners aren't necessarily supportive. So keep in mind that like Joe and I were kind of average people. Like we haven't always been radical. Like we haven't always been really naturally minded. It's just,
I was.
Yeah, okay. We were like metalhead wild kind of.
That's how I was radical.
Crazy leather wearing like teens, rebels, I guess you could say. But we were never like Grateful Dead followers and crunchy or whatever labels would have been used back then. But so when I told you I wanted to have a home birth the first time, do you remember like how that felt? Were you scared? I'm really asking.
I think
because I don't really remember. I
think I just was kind of like, how does that work? You know, like what is that? The doctors come here. You know, I didn't really know.
I remember that the midwives said to bring you in like the next day. And I remember that insurance didn't cover it. And my mother was so sweet and said, we'll pay for it. And she was in England. She said, we'll pay for your home birth. And that was awesome because we had very little income at the time. And you went to see the midwives and you asked them all these questions. Right. So the home birth midwives were in Maine and they were great. They came here and, so you asked them questions like what would happen in an emergency and you felt confident by the end of it.
Yeah, we're doing the research, you know, I mean, everything we read was if you're within a 20-minute drive of the hospital and if the midwives are, you know, less than that to you and have these things on hand and ready and, you know, it's preparation. It's kind of like, you know, you going camping, you don't just walk out into the woods. You bring things that you need and you supply yourself with the right items that you're going to need to go camping and make it through the night or two or whatever you're going to do. And we knew that.
We got a home birth kit. Like, I remember we researched that we needed a home birth kit. It was a really awesome
I think they
experience.
even gave you a list of stuff.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
You know, to have on hand.
I remember that was like the first night Devin ever slept through the night because he was 2.5 and he was still nursing through the night. And I woke up in labor and, he didn't nurse. I put the fan on and he never woke up through the night again to nurse, which worked out really good.
Because that was a quick birth though, wasn't it?
It was like 4.5 hours.
Her birth was like short. See you later.
Yeah, it was really quick and it was awesome. It was really intense, but it was great. And she was the smallest of our babies, only 9.5 pounds.
Only.
I remember when Tiffany was born, she was the only one we didn't find out the sex with. We wanted to be surprised. And I couldn't wait to have a little girl and I pushed her out and you whispered in my ear, it's a girl, and I'll never forget that feeling. And then I kind of flipped over because I had pushed her out on all fours, which was really awkward with like all these people watching from behind. But that's another whole story. I learned to be a little more private with birth. Joe's mother was there, sister, midwifery students, and it just like in the moment of birth, you don't really care, but at the same time, you do feel kind of awkward being watched. So anyway, then I flipped over and Tiff was put on my stomach and I saw the umbilical cord, but my brain was so like couldn't register and I thought it was a penis. And I'm like, no, wait, it's a boy with a really big penis. And Joe's like, no, that it's a girl. So anyway, then fast forward to we had a intense home birth with Ivy. She was posterior and 11 pounds and it was really difficult. But it taught me a lot. And then with Orion's birth, I had an unassisted but attended birth, which means I labored alone. But I had done a lot of research by then. I had already been a doula and a childbirth teacher for many years, and I had attended many births and learned a lot. So the continuum of sexuality between conception and birth was something that I really pulled into this experience. And Joe and I spent a lot of time alone in the bathroom, just hugging and kissing and just really connecting. And it helped so much. I remember in labor with him in the hard course of labor that I was standing and looking into his eyes with every contraction. I had read about doing that in a book. I think it might have been one of Ina May Gaskin's birthing books, that to look in the eyes, gaze in the eyes of your lover during a contraction, and they will share some of the energy or some of the intensity of the pain or experience. It wasn't pain for me. Orion's birth was virtually painless because of how I did it. But every time I remember I looked in Joe's eyes with every contraction, it was so powerful. We shared the experience and he was with me and he just gazed in my eyes. It was like one of the most romantic times of our entire life for me.
I didn't feel a thing.
But remember rocking and dancing and making out, and like it sounds so crazy to think about making out during labor, but we did, and it was really passionate and really beautiful. I wouldn't say that my birth was like one of those orgasmic births, as much just props to the women that do that, that can handle that, do that, but I did not have that experience. It was painless, but it was really alone. I was alone. And I wanted Joe to be downstairs. I didn't want to be watched. I wanted just to labor by myself. So I remember putting on I had Rage Against the Machine cranking, People of the Sun, and I was just like literally bobbing my head up and down, kind of like mildly headbanging to the music as I started pushing, and it was amazing. It was the best birth ever. The midwives came up at the very end, my mother was there. She caught Orion as he was born into this world. And he was born in the amniotic sac. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that listening, but born in the caul. And my mother didn't know what the heck it was. She was all freaked out. The midwife helped her. But then Ivy got to cut the cord, and yeah, that my last birthing experience was amazing. And I write all about my births in detail in my book, Sexy Birth. So feel free to check it out. You can buy it directly from us. I share all my experiences as a childbirth teacher and doula over the last decade. And it's a really, a book written with great passion and love.
The book's on Amazon also.
Yeah. Yeah, so births of our children, amazing, powerful. I can't even believe that they're the age that they're at. I'm going to England with the kids in September, as I mentioned last week. We have nailed down the date, September 6th in Peterborough, UK, United Kingdom, and all the kids are going, and me. And Joe gets to have 2 weeks alone. What are you going to do with your time?
When are you going? September 6th?
September 2nd, we're leaving.
Oh, okay.
The conference is on the 6th.
Oh, okay.
What are you going to do with your time alone? You've never been alone without anyone in 15 years for 2 weeks. Like, what are you most looking forward to? And it's okay, honey, to be looking forward to time alone.
I understand. I'll probably watch horror movies every night.
You think so?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Do you long for time alone?
No, not too bad. I mean, it's nice to get away for a minute, but it's nice to be able to go out and do something that's not, kids in diaper bags. Not that we have diaper bags anymore.
We haven't had diaper bags, bro, but I know what you mean. I think
it's nice, though, to get that kind of I have my camera club that I go to twice a month, and it's just nice to just get a mental break, I guess, from being on all the time.
I think it can be intense, when you're home 24 hours a day. I think that I do sometimes wonder what it would be like.
We're not home 24 hours a day. We do leave the building.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I didn't mean it like that. I mean that we're together.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're together so much.
A large portion of our family is together all the time.
All the time. And it's great. I love it. However, I wonder what it would be like sometime to have a traditional life where you were gone from 9 to 5. Would it be? I didn't like when we were doing that, when Devin was little. I missed you. I think I needed help more. I would couldn't wait to get home. I'd count the hours. I really was a clock watcher when you worked for the man.
Well, last year I worked part-time. Or was that the year before? The year before that, I worked part-time in the summer, at my old restaurant job. Just a couple. Yeah, but that was stressful to get home. It was kind of hard to leave that early and come back after that many hours of working and still, whatever. It was just real different, compared to what we're used to.
Well, because I think a lot of dads, they're at work all day and then they come home and mom's like, yay, I get a break. So it's you work all day, then you take the kids. And sometimes it is the other way around, but that must be really hard for some dads to need to do that when a mom's been alone with the kids all day. We really kind of split the duties. I'd say, I handle the housework and the cooking, and you go and make wooden kitchens. For those of you that didn't know, we have a business called Willow Toys. We've had the business for how many years? 9 years?
Yeah, 10, right? I think the first one we made was when Devin was 4.
Yeah, so we've had a business called Willow Toys where Joe makes wooden toy kitchens, castles, doll houses. It's been the main source of our income, and it's something that just kind of happened. Devin had an interest in wooden toys when he was really little. We used to visit this local toy store, and the prices were more than we could afford. And I remember saying to Joe, I would love that so much. And Joe said, well, I'll try to make it. And he went home and he made exactly pretty much what it was, something really similar. And
that was the play stand.
The play stands, and the business was born from there. He realized that he had this talent for woodworking, and he really honed the skills and made amazing toys, and friends wanted them, and pretty soon we were listing them on eBay, and every time we'd list something, he'd sell it, and it just really grew naturally. So just go with the inspiration in the moment. You never know when a business is going to be born. We didn't plan on that. I still remember when we were brainstorming over what the name would be. It feels like yesterday. I can remember we were in the cellar and just talking about what should we name it, and I don't even know how we came up with Willow Toys.
We just wrote down 15 names, and that was one of them.
Yeah, but it's really awesome to be able to. Everything's connected in our lives. Every aspect of our life is somehow connected. I love that Joe makes these toys by hand, all by himself, with love. They take longer than if you were to order something from Toys R Us, because everything's handmade to order. But he's making these toys that these kids play with for years, and just kind of an extension of our love that we have for children and so forth. But Joe's also a photographer. and he has had that interest for 20 years or more. But you've been professional for how long now? A couple of years?
2 years.
Yeah, he's kind of starting out. It's a new passion. I know he's going to be wildly successful with it.
So yeah, if you know anybody getting married in the North Conway, New Hampshire area, let me know.
But that needs family portraits. Something Joe and I started doing together recently. Oh, it was so fun. You have to check out the pictures. I have a bunch on our family blog, thesparklingmartins.com. Check that out. But we started doing infant photography. So again, combining our passions. I love ways that we can connect with each other as a family, as husband and wife, with things we both love doing. So Joe loves photography. I love babies and birth. So we started doing newborn photography. We photographed, 4 newborns?
Yeah.
And we learned. We're completely self-taught. We watched so many hours of YouTube videos and read websites on how to do it safely, how to go about it. We know exactly what we're doing. We work together seamlessly. Our first shoot, I think, was one of our funnest.
Yeah.
We got so many awesome photos. We learned so much with the others. Like if the baby's older than 2 weeks old, it's really hard to do because the baby's not happy. Like you need the baby to be asleep really for the best photos. So that's been a great venture that we've done together. We've loved it.
So if you know anybody that has a newborn or is pregnant in the North Carolina, New Hampshire area.
Well, between childbirth classes, doula service, I mean, we do so many different things and we love all of it. So it's just a side effect of doing things we love is to earn a living from it. So if you're somebody who's interested in learning more about that, you can set up a coaching call with me anytime, drop me an email. I love to inspire people to create a profession out of what they love. Our son Devin has an Etsy store, as I mentioned before. He's into blacksmithing. He loves selling knives and he makes cutting boards. He's really into woodworking now too. So, I mean, if you're not happy in life in any aspect, whether it's your kids in school, if they're not happy, if you're not happy working for somebody else, there's always alternatives. And it takes getting over fear that you won't be taken care of. I mean, you really have to know that you will be provided for. You kind of have to have a certain attitude that you can always fall back on a job. At least try working for yourself. And there's always ways you can make ends meet and cut corners. So what would you say to a parent who wants to pursue their passions and make money? Do you have any tips? I know no CEO.
Well, I think
tips.
It depends.
Is that what a CEO, SEO?
No, SEO.
I always say it wrong. Joe's
that
like the SEO guru right now. It's all he talks about. And I swear to God, I love that he loves it, but there's times where I'm like, I don't think I can hear another thing about SEO, but I'm a sounding board. So, and he's listened to many, many hours of me go on about birth. So,
right.
It's karma.
Well, SEO is search engine optimization, and that's what Google uses to find you on the internet. But anyway, I mean, if I was, it depends on what somebody wanted to do for work. I mean, if someone had a passion for gardening, I'd say join the garden club and see if you could, put the flowers in at the local library at first, and then see if you can get a landscaping gig. But if you're someone who makes things, I know a lot of moms that can knit. Not that I personally know them, but I know a lot of moms do knit or craft things. And you could turn, some people might think it's silly, but if you were into making paper flowers, you could sell those things on Etsy.com.
Well, I love that you said about the garden club, because I think you really need to kind of, in the same way that people go to college and they pay to get an education, you can do this yourself. So if you have an interest in gardening, for example, and you could see yourself in some kind of career in the future, volunteer your time, do things to help other people, to gain the skill and the time necessary to really gain these skills and perfect your craft by volunteering. That's what we did with the infant photography. We did it for free just to help some moms out. We helped a great teen mom out who normally wouldn't be able to afford something like that. It was such a gift. We do volunteer work all the time in some way, shape, or form, donating kitchens, or Joe does photography for people in need. And we've done different, in need.
Well, I'm donating a family session
in need, because photography
because people need photography. They have to have it. I'm out of photography. I need more.
As I said it, I know it sounded just, for people that
a local preschool is having a fundraiser, and I'm donating. People that are
raising money for somebody else in need, raising money for a cause.
Right.
You're donating photography for a regular raffle or whatever to auction off to help other people in need. Okay, that is better.
But back to the original question, I mean, I would say to just find out what it is that you're good at, that you like to do, and if you can do it, make money at it. If you could sell it for $1 more than it cost you to make it, then you're making money at it. And there's a site out there. It's kind of like eBay. It's called Etsy.com. and you can build your own store on there. I think it's free to join the site and have a sales page. It's really cheap to list things. I believe it's 20 cents to list. So
isn't eBay like really expensive now?
Well, yeah, we actually closed our eBay store after years of having it, and nobody was buying anything anymore because we had to up the prices on eBay to cover all the stupid fees that they have. So with Etsy, it's a 20-cent listing fee. The listing is for 30 days, and then when it sells, it's only like a 2% fee to sell it. So if you're selling something that for $100, it's going to cost you $2 plus the 20-cent listing fee. So it's almost a no-brainer. Even if you're just selling hand-knitted sweaters for babies for $7, it's only going to cost you $1 or $2 to list it and sell it. And we bought some of our newborn props on Etsy. The first 2 hats that we bought were right on Etsy, and you can find a lot of good stuff there. I'm sure most people have already heard of that place, but if you haven't, check it out.
The prices are really good too. Like I love supporting people that are providing for their families, and they're not outrageous. The baby hats were really affordable. So I don't think that like shopping at Walmart is going to necessarily be the cheapest way to go. In fact, Etsy is really affordable for so many things. So yeah, support your local artisans.
Yep. And it's a huge growing site. I mean, it's getting better and better every day. Every day. I don't think update it every day, but it's getting better and better. Every month, every 2 months, they come up with some kind of new update on it. So.
But if you have a knowledge that somebody else doesn't, you can always find ways to support somebody and make money off of things that you know about. But you really need to start off by donating time and offering yourself. I think the calling to help people is really important. And,
one thing I'll just plug it since we're right here is I have a Facebook group for unschoolers. It's called Work at Home Unschoolers. So if you're on Facebook and you're not in that group, you can check it out. Just type in Work at Home Unschoolers. We also have, I run another page called Unschoolers Seek. And what that is it's a page that has 52 maps. It has a lot more than that, but if you're in the United States, you can find the tab that has the 52 maps, and you can find your state and put your town, and that'll link your name, and you'll be able to connect with others that are local to your area. And we also run another large group on Facebook called Whole Life Unschooling. There's over 6,000 members there. So if you want to join any one of those groups, they're all interlinked to each other. So if you can find one of those, the Unschoolers Seek, the Whole Life Unschooling, or the Work at Home Unschoolers, and then you can link your pages or link yourself to that, and maybe you can learn a little more about working at home through that the Work at Home Unschoolers page.
So in the spirit of supporting your children, what I'd love for you to take from tonight's show is to don't be afraid to ask people to help or mentor your kids in something they're interested in. I had a post this morning about Devin and the deer.
So if you see a dude on the side of the road dragging a dead deer, you might want to stop and ask him if he needs any help.
Well, it's so funny because I started to pull over and Abby's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to see if he needs help. And she was a little nervous. She's like, oh, are you sure? I said, yeah, let's help him, And so I was so glad that I did, because you do a random act of kindness. Who would have thought that? I didn't even know it was a deer. It kind of freaked me out when it came around the corner. But then, just asked him if Devin could help him out and learn. He did. It was a great experience, I'm assuming. Did he say anything about it?
No, I haven't talked to him. Yeah, he had fun yesterday. He just got home. So
I wish he could come up and talk to everybody and tell them how it was, but we're running out of time here on the show tonight. So thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already, if you're listening to this through YouTube, please comment. I'd love to hear your comments. Other people go and they want to gain inspiration and kind of have an idea of what other people thought of certain shows. And if you have any ideas for shows or anything you'd like to hear, please send me a message. I'm so happy to cover it. There's so many aspects of our lives that we share with other people, between being a raw food chef, having a daughter who's vegan, respecting children's choices with foods, with media. We never even covered the media aspect of it. But we are here for you to learn from and grow from with our unique life. We're always happy to share and inspire. So thank you so much, Joe, honey, for coming here on tonight. I loved having you. I love you.
Thank you. Love you. It was fun.
Bye.
Good night.